of nature which is my own, I send forth again and again all these multitude of beings which are helpless under the control of prakrti, nature. When a new cycle is about to begin and a new day of Brahmaji is about to start, then the Supreme Soul takes hold of nature which is his and sends forth again and again all these multitude of beings which are helpless and under the control of nature. The word prakrti is used, and we saw in the last verse that prakrti means both maya, illusion, and svabhav, self, nature. And we also saw the 5 factors that determines one's svabhav, nature. The Supreme Soul creates the following of karmas. First, Shri Krishna says that prakrti, nature, is his. Prakrti, nature, is the Supreme Soul's indescribable, bright, and distinguished power. We talk about prakrti, nature, but what is prakrti, nature, in reality? It is the power of the Supreme Soul, but it is indescribable. Not only that, but it is bright. Prakrti, nature, can never be in the hands of a person who does not have brightness. Scientists made a lot of efforts to conquer nature, and conquering nature is a common term in modern science. People want to win over nature. Prakrti, nature, is a bright power of God. It is also a distinguished power that is unique to God. The more that one becomes divine, then the more he begins to attain prakrti, nature. The further one goes away from the Supreme Soul, then the more that one becomes a slave to prakrti, nature, and then the closer that one goes to the Supreme Soul, then the more that one becomes an owner of prakrti, nature. Therefore, prakrti, nature, is unique to God himself, and it is unique to the divine power. The more that you become divine, and it's described in our scriptures, the more that you attain siddhis, spiritual powers. The more that one's penance is increased, and purer that they become, then you get to see siddhis, spiritual powers. There is a Vak Siddhi where whatever you say happens. I'll list the 8 siddhis, the 8 Ashta Siddhis, 8 spiritual powers. They're the following. The first is Anima, which is reducing one's body even to the size of an atom. Then you've got Mahima, expanding one's body to an infinitely large size. Then it's Garima, becoming infinitely heavy. Lagima, becoming almost weightless. Bhakti, having unrestricted access to all places. Prakyamya, realizing whatever one desires. Ishva, possessing absolute lordship. And Vastva, the power to subjugate all. So these are the Asta Siddhis, the 8 Siddhis. So, at the beginning, therefore one should go closer to the Supreme Soul. This prakrti, nature, is unique also because this prakrti, nature, is the same as the Supreme Soul, and it is also not the same as the Supreme Soul. You cannot call it the same, and you cannot call it different. It is not the Supreme Soul, but it is supported by the Supreme Soul. If the Supreme Soul were not there, then prakrti, nature, would also not be there. This is the quality of prakrti, nature, in this meaning. Ramanujacharya said in his commentary that God creates the world using nature, ashadata parinamaya, and not without nature. The reason for this is that the state of disorder can only be in nature and not in a Supreme Soul. Therefore God creates the world using prakrti, nature. Many people therefore ask whether the Supreme Soul could create the world without nature. Of course God can create the world without nature. I'm speaking philosophically, and therefore forgive me if you find this dry, but we must understand this. For some acharyas, teachers, the Supreme Soul creates the world using nature, in particular for Nimbakacharya-ji, Madhvacharya-ji. On the other hand, there is Srimad Vallabhacharya-ji Mahaprabhu, who does not accept the existence of Maya illusion, Subhavvaita. He says that there is nothing by the name of Maya illusion, that everything there is the Supreme Soul. He says that if Maya illusion were there, then it is God's toys, and therefore there is no use for Maya illusion. Srimad Vallabhacharya-ji says that if God created the world using nature, then this would mean that God would not be able to create the world if nature was not there. In response to this, the other acharyas, teachers, say that when God creates the world using nature, God is not dependent upon nature, but this act of creating the world using nature is God's competence and God's ability. Let us try to understand this. I will say again that there is a limit in the example. When we try to understand important principles, and one can't find any examples to show this, you can only understand it philosophically and through experience, but I'll give an example with limits so that we can try to understand it. It's like going from Birmingham to London. You set yourself a goal that you want to reach London. You go and sit in a car. You can then say that Kachalal took a car to go from Birmingham to London. You can certainly say that if the car was not there, then Kachalal would never been able to reach London. As I said, there are limits to this example. The fact that Kachalal sat on the car to go to London shows that Kachalal has control over the car. He can control this car. He firstly owns the car, he can drive this car, and he can control the car. Only then can he go from Birmingham to London. If he had no control over the car, if he did not have a car, or if he did not know how to drive the car, then would Kachalal leave to go to London? No. The fact that Kachalal has taken his car to go to London shows that he does take the help of the car, but the important thing is that Kachalal knows how to drive the car. You cannot use a subordinate reason to downgrade Kachalal's competence. You can say that if the car was not there, then Kachalal would not go walking. If he wanted to go, then why could he not go? What I mean to say is that the Supreme Soul creates with the help of nature. Swabhakritim avashtaya aham sujami. Because the Supreme Soul is the owner of nature. We take a knife to cut potatoes, not because we are slave to the knife, but because we are the owners of the knife. In the same way, the Supreme Soul is the owner of nature, and this is the Supreme Soul's competence. Even a human being can become the owner of nature, but the problem with human beings is that human beings create a sense of mindness over the tools, and therefore human beings have delights, interests, attractions and repulsions, and from this bondages are created. The special thing about the Supreme Soul is that the Supreme Soul uses prakrti nature and creates the world using prakrti nature, but the Supreme Soul is not a slave to nature. The Supreme Soul does not have any attraction or repulsions to nature, and the Supreme Soul does not create any bondages with nature. In the next verse, the Supreme Soul will say that these bondages do not arise with him. Human beings also use tools, and the Supreme Soul also uses tools. Human beings are a part of nature and use nature, and the Supreme Soul also uses nature. But the difference between the two is that the Supreme Soul is the owner of nature, whereas human beings create bondages over nature, and therefore human beings are slaves to nature. Shri Krishna says in this verse that human beings are helpless under the control of nature. Shri Krishna is talking about those human beings who create a sense of mindness with nature and therefore create bondages. These human beings become under the control of nature. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya has given the description that those beings who are dependent and those who are swayed by their inborn tendencies and sent forth by the Supreme Soul in nature. Avasham avashanam avidya doshai bhavashi kutam prakriti vashat svabhavaha. Those beings that are not under the control of nature are liberated souls. We'll try to understand this a little. We saw earlier in this chapter that our nature, history of karmas and imaginations are used by the Supreme Soul to determine the bodies in which we go into. But there are some fortunate individual souls that are not controlled by nature, not slaves to Maya, illusion, and not slaves to nature. Manushyanam sahasreshu. And wherever a new cycle begins, then they are not set forth. Such people do not have to go into the cycle of birth and death. The people who are slaves to their natures and who are, in Srimad Adi Shankaracharya's words, dependent, have to come back to the circle of birth and death. Thank you so much. The Supreme Soul says that he regulates this whole activity. In these two verses we have seen, in the 7th and 8th verses, God says that he controls the whole system. Great saints tell us 6 things, thanks so much, step by step about God who is all-powerful. 6 principles of the universe. The first is that this universe is a conscious evolution. If you sit down to think about it, then you feel that this universe is slowly evolving. Because this universe is a conscious evolution, the evolution that has taken place so far is an irreversible process. A child becomes a teenager and it becomes of old age. Then it is not possible to make the senior citizen a child again. Of course, when the soul acquires a new body, then the new body will be a child from the beginning, but you cannot reverse this. A person can go from being ignorant to being knowledgeable. It is not possible to make the knowledgeable person ignorant again. Because this world is a conscious evolution, there is bliss when there is development. The reason for this is that when we are developing, then we are doing so with the world. Many people have this, that when they're going on a train, then if they are seated facing the direction in which the train is going, then they enjoy sitting on the train. But if they are sitting facing the opposite direction which the train is going in, then after 15 minutes or half an hour, they start feeling as if something is wrong. They start feeling dizzy. This also happens when people are in a big car facing opposite to the direction in which the car is going. If I'm sitting in such a car, then if they expect me to talk, when I talk from the beginning, but after 15 minutes or half an hour, then I can't talk anymore. This is because the car is going in one direction, and we are sitting facing opposite to that direction. In the same way, the person who is continuing to slowly develop, and therefore going in the direction of life that is a conscious evolution, in the direction of this world, and therefore this person has bliss. There is no doubt that we're getting less in listening to the words of God, but even if you start to learn something new, then you feel good about this. If a person learns a new musical instrument, then the person feels good about it and wants to try it. The person then plays a musical instrument in front of people whom the person likes. Not only this is not that this is the only thing in life to do, but as soon as the person learns something new, then the person likes it straight away. This is because it is a development. The more that we improve ourselves, then slowly and slowly, the closer that we'll get to the Supreme Soul. The first principle is therefore that this world is a conscious evolution. If you go in opposite direction of development, then your consciousness is hampered and disturbed, and one experiences bondages. That is why people do not like illness. Illness stops this development. As soon as sickness of any type comes, then this development is hampered. It is as if you are driving a car 80 kilometers an hour, and then all of a sudden the light turns red and you get stuck in a traffic jam. The car stops and you get so frustrated. In the same way, development in life was taking place in one direction, but as soon as a block came in the way, then the person gets stopped and a person gets hampered. Therefore, you should always think about whether you have advanced. This is a necessary thing in order to get bliss from life. You need to think about whether you have learned anything new and about whether you have become close to God. Just like life is a conscious evolution, there should be a conscious effort on the part of the individual soul to unfold one's own self. The individual should think about whether she has developed in any way, and only then is there bliss in her life. When you look at society today, then the reason why people do not get bliss and happiness today is that the process of evolution has stopped. When a person begins the challenge of life at the age of 18, 21 or 22, then the person goes into a monotonous life. The person wakes up at 7 a.m., attends a phone call at 8 a.m., leaves his house at 9 a.m., comes back home at 6 p.m., eats at 7 p.m., goes to the club at 8 p.m., watches television, and reads the newspaper at 10 p.m., and goes to bed at 11 p.m. What new thing has a person done in this? On a day when nothing new comes, the consciousness keeps getting cut. Therefore, whenever you see depression in people's lives, the very reason for this is this. Years are gone and nothing new has happened. After 2 years ago, then the person thinks that he should change the colors of the walls, the upholstery of the sofas, or some of the furniture. If a person lives in the same way for 50 years, then the person becomes dull. The material circumstances in which you live should be changed, and the life you are living in should be changed. Day by day, there should be improvements. Number 2. The second principle is that this universe is an intention. The universe is a strong intention. The universe has a goal. If you have a strong intention in a certain direction, then if you go in that direction, then the doors will begin to open. If you begin to make efforts, then the doors will begin to open. This is the system of the universe. There has never been a person in the universe who has had a strong intention for something but has not got that thing. All our wishes are lukewarm. We think that if we get them, then it will be fine, but if we do not get them, then we do not care. But if you have a strong intention, or you have to have that thing, then for the fulfillment of that strong intention, you need the attitude that you are prepared to do anything it takes to get that thing. Deham pata yami pa, karyam sadayami. My body may break, but I will attain the goal that I have set for myself. You need to have the attitude that I will do it. If you have such a strong intention, then it will certainly be fulfilled. Why can it not be fulfilled? The doors will begin to open. You'll get help even when you do not expect to get help. If you think that you cannot get out of the situation, then you'll be able to get out of it in a way that you did not deem possible at the time. This is the way of the world. The reason why the majority of people average out in life is because they do not have a strong intention for something. You should have a strong intention that you definitely want to do that thing, and that you certainly get that thing. Rabindranath Tagore said that if a man, he was generalizing by saying man, and this applies equally to females, if a man wants to attain anything, and if a person wishes to achieve success in his life, then he must have an intention in his life. But Tagore made it clear that this intention in the life of a man should not be a woman if he wants to be a successful person. There's a point behind this. The intention of a man having an attraction for a woman is instinctive. Ahara nitya bayamantu nancham samana meta pashubinarayam. Eating, sleeping, the instinct of fear and breeding are qualities of humans as well as animals. But if we just perform these actions, then it's a misuse of human life. This intention will not work. If a man that has an intention that is not a woman, then the man will be successful in his path. You can also say about the woman, that if the woman wants to be successful, then the woman should have an intention for something. I can say clearly that, again, that this intention should not be for a man. If a woman has any intention apart from that of a man, then the woman will be successful. To be clearer, what Tagore is trying to say is that a person should not only have a sexual drive, and if a person has a drive for anything else, then the person will certainly become successful. This is because it is a principle of the universe that this universe is a strong intention. This universe is a strong intention. Third, in order to understand this universe, we must remember that life is central to existence. If you wish to attain anything in the world, then you must be lively. The more lively you become, the more full of life that you become, then the quicker you'll be able to attain existence. Do we see life in existence? We see it in ourselves, in other people that are walking around, or we see it in animals. But do you see it in plants? Life is central to existence. A blooming flower is central to existence. The more compassionate that a person becomes, and the closer that the person comes to existence, and the more bliss will increase in life. Life is central to existence. The mind is central to life. You can hold life with a mind, and you can hold existence with life. You can attain life with the mind, and you can attain existence with life. You can experience life with the mind, and you can experience existence with life. The mind is central to life. Consciousness is central to the mind. The more consciousness that a human being has, the more aware that the human being's mind is. The more aware that a human being's mind is, the more lively that the human being is. The more lively that the human being is, then the more that the human being experiences existence. If you look at society today, then people's minds have become material and there is no consciousness. When a person does something wrong, then their consciousness does not fight them. I find it strange many times that people have no consciousness at all. How can a person who becomes this material ever attain life? How can such a person come closer to existence? How can such a person perform penances? Consciousness is central to the mind. And finally, God is central to consciousness. You can go in two directions. The first is that you can begin to walk on the path of the Supreme Soul. Here, the more the penances of God you perform, the knowledge of God you attain, and the nearness and proximity to God you attain, then the more aware your consciousness will become. The more your consciousness becomes aware, the more your mind will become aware. The more aware your mind becomes, then the more bliss you have in life. And the more bliss you have in life, then the more bliss you will have in existence. When you have bliss in existence, then you will understand intentions, and when you attain your intentions, then the flow of your consciousness will begin running in the direction you're running in, and you'll be successful. You begin evolving in the direction you're going. Life is a conscious evolution. The second way is that by understanding this flow of consciousness little by little, the individual being will reach the Supreme Soul. The individual will keep walking one step at a time and will reach God. God says that He creates the world through these layers of nature. One may think that if God creates all of this, then will God not get bondages? This is because when we create all of this, then we create bondages. God says that no bondages arise for Him in the next verse.